In this talk, I'd like to share the intersection of health and obsession. So, the first thing that I want to say is that one of the biggest difference between obsession and focus, or the compulsiveness and the healthy and present moving forward of a goal, is whether or not there's an element of pause and presence. And here's what I mean. These videos have become something that's exciting for me. It's exciting to notice a pattern and realize it into a concept, a series of thoughts, a video. It's exciting to imagine that, like me, someone else might find joy or benefit in the pattern. And that's really exciting. Waking up and feeling great this morning, like peaceful and rested, speaks of, I guess, one of the ripple effects of another of my compulsions, which is sometimes nervously staying up at night without rest. Something sparked a certain frenetic energy in me about 2 days ago, and I've been staying in that frenetic energy without much pause, because I presume I was afraid of the feelings that were waiting in the pause, which, when there's intense trauma in our history, feelings can be or can feel more threatening than the consequences of doing something manic, for example. And I think this goes back to another thing that's important in this framework, which is to understand that what most people see as symptoms are our solutions. Everything that we do or don't do is a solution that on some level, emotionally, mentally, physically, protects us from, hides us from a pain that is even bigger. Example, let's say we stay in our homes, and our friends perceive it as a problem that we are becoming isolated. But in truth, staying at home solves a problem that in a moment-to-moment level feels more dangerous. It solves the problem of escaping the fear that we feel when we face the prospect of going out and start imagining unknowns, unknown probabilities that leave us vulnerable to stirring unknown emotions that feel overwhelming. And this is the way that dis-ease spreads. When we have a reservoir of intense and overwhelming emotion that is locked in part of our body. This is one of my reservoirs in the jaw. That intense emotion that locked there becomes a new fear. Fear of feeling that emotion. Fear of being swept away by that emotion. Fear of being frozen and unable to move in that emotion. A fear of being rendered into a state where we cannot survive. In a world where we feel our life is in jeopardy. So managing and escaping this emotion, this state, becomes paramount. And so we start noticing correlations in a paranoid way, in a panicky, paranoid sort of way, where it's like we start to shake hands with someone and make eye contact, and this flares up, and it's like, oh, I can't meet any more people. That's too dangerous. And then we avoid people. And then we start to get scared and panicky when people approach, when we realize we can't meet any more people. And then we've got to leave the house, or we've got to leave the job, and in this way, an unresponded to state, through a lack of just very basic human physiology and knowledge, starts spreading to where our whole life becomes rippled with management. I've got to manage this so that I can manage that, so that I can manage that, so that I can manage that, so that I don't experience this. That brings me back to that frozen place, that place where I'm terrified of being out of control and helpless, and that my life is in jeopardy. That place where I want to fight irrationally, and I know the fighting isn't going to do any good, but I just want to attack and beat the hell or criticize the hell out of something, and I know that's dangerous, so I've got to hide from that. Or I want to just run as fast as I possibly can away from everything. And if I do, maybe I'll never stop. Maybe no one will understand, so I've got to hide from that feeling. Because that feeling, that impulse isn't safe in my world. Someone won't understand. Someone will judge me. Someone will hurt me. I have nowhere to go. So, one of the many strategies that we develop in this area is compulsiveness, which is a non-presence. It's this vibrating energy that we're going to do it. But it's like, I'm going to shut my eyes. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to just shut my eyes and run. I'm going to get it over with. I'm not going to be present for it, but I'm going to get it over with. And this compulsiveness in our life, like I'm not going to be present for us, but I'm not going to be present for my life. I'm not going to be present for this feeling. I'm going to do something that'll blot it all out. Is a survival strategy that solves fear of the reality and the fear of the emotion at the same time. It's a solution. And I became hyper, quote unquote, when I was around 6 or 7. When there was so much fear, there was nowhere to put it. There was no one to talk to, nowhere to put it. So I talked really fast. I imagined really fast. I ran really fast. And I felt safer. And that translated later to states of that energy, of that fear, of that compulsion. How much are you compulsive? Meaning how much of your day is spent in this nervous energy? How much of the day and how intense is it? So is it 10% of the day, 20% of the day? Is it an erratic bubble that just shows up for 3 or 4 days at a time and then collapses? This bubble is a solution to deep underlying fear, dread, pain. And as such, it is and is not our friend. It will, over time, expend our adrenals, create numbness, create chronic fatigue. If our body is revving up and then we're panicking about the revving and we're using drugs and alcohol to rev us down again, we'll have the dual effects of the nervous energy and the toxins we're using to suppress that energy. So it will have a dual cost. What I want to talk about here is working with the energy. First of all, respecting the solution, the kind of manic energy and what it's doing, how it's protecting us from certain feelings, certain fears, certain feelings. But also with that welcoming and appreciation for that strategy, for that success, I want to invite you to consider some great steps forward in your life that could benefit from manic energy. A couple of things that I've found useful. For example, creating, because a lot of this manic energy is getting channeled towards workaholism, staying frenetically busy, video games, sex, masturbation, and I would suggest that on an analytical level, we look at our lives and see what area is slipping or needs help for our long-term well-being. For example, money, friendship, self-awareness, in a compassionate sense. When we're overwhelmed with emotion around this nervous energy, we may not have any piece of compassion. And so a resource of peace and compassion can actually be very needed and wanted. Last night, I could not sleep. Nervous energy triggered by an event 2 days ago that I would not have predicted create this nervous energy left me revving along. And so I couldn't sleep. And so I stayed up. I watched a movie, comedy, and I chose a goofy comedy so I could have some belly laughs, which is, of course, better than staying up frenetic and watching a thriller and being more frenetic. I read a bunch of heartfelt emails I had been procrastinating from my girlfriend. And, frenetically read through all of those and felt peace and joy. And I replied to all of them. I attended to some business and goals. I did some research about the future online and airline tickets. I cuddled tightly with my partner. And in doing these things, I honored the things that were most needed in my reality. And one of the ways that I've discovered I can break a frenetic cycle is stay up all night and then sleep. There's something about the jet lag chemistry that breaks the cycle. And so partner with it, let go of, stuff. I also work with this, knowing that I have this. I schedule my appointments in the afternoon. That means that I can go through a jet lag cycle reflexively, meaning I don't decide I'm going to go through a jet lag cycle. What happens is there's nervous energy on some days, which means I can't get to sleep. And because I've played that card any number of different ways, I know the best thing is just play with it. The more I don't sleep, just see that I do something fun, something useful. Go to bed when I'm ready. Be fine with manically staying up all night. Like, I can't go to sleep and feel this. I can't go to sleep and feel this. Okay. Let's go and what do we want to do now? Do we want to play a board game? Do we want to cuddle? Do we want to talk with this friend? Do we want to write this letter? And if we do that intelligently, in other words, if I spend this nervous energy intelligently and particularly thinking about the future, then my life actually improves on an outer level. At the same time, I'm allowing this, quote, reactive and instinctive solution. And I'll wake up sometime around noon the next day, and I'll feel peaceful like I do right now. And part of me will want to jump in, get all frenetic around. And another part says, no, let's enjoy these hours of deep rest. And because I'm not fighting this pattern, I work with it by, as I say, not having any appointments in the morning. It just gives me space, and if I go to bed early and don't have any frenetic energy and get up at 9, that's fine. I've got a whole morning free without appointments to get goals done and get things moving. So the thoughts I want to leave you with are other people's perception of symptoms and problems are our solutions, 1. 2, that in this case, the underlying trauma, the underlying panic and stuff stored in the body, which, for example, I have not solved yet, must be healed before it will not spread into all these other areas, positively and negatively. When we're compulsive, can we use that compulsive energy to give ourselves and our future self gifts by preparing and things like that? And I guess the other thing is, can we design and work with our strategies? Saying, staying up all night to hide from a feeling I can't escape that's not in the past or that's not in the present for years at a time is not ideal. But since staying up all night, doing goals, writing, reading, making a video like this, I made a couple of videos, is the best solution I've found to the PTSD. And if I do stay up all night, I'm going to be exhausted. Or if I do have a 9 a.m. appointment, I'm going to be nervous all night. And now I'll pile that nervousness onto the other nervousness, and I won't be able to sleep at all. And then I get panicky. The best thing that I can do is schedule appointments in the afternoon. And knowing that that's important, one of the best things that I can do is educate and shape my reality, that I have the freedom to do that. And this is both kind of my genius and my downfall, meaning I have adapted, since I was 14, so much of my reality around the core disease of PTSD. And I've done it methodically, respectfully, and slowly without judgment or fighting it. That my entire reality, from the choice to be self-employed, from the choice to do landscaping, which is not urgent work, from the choice to do install rather than maintenance, so that I can take holidays, from the choice to tell my clients they'll see me in the afternoon, from the choice to write contracts that give me deadlines that allow me to take twice as much time as I think I'll need, from the ability to make more money through contracting than hourly work so that I can pay all the therapy bills that my PTSD needs, to all the many things, to the staying up all night, to the goals. All of these things solve, coexist with, and allow the illness to continue in that coexistent state until I find a solution. Not to having the discipline or taking a sleeping pill, but to healing the underlying terror, the underlying shame and unease that is in those really early childhood days. And I want to leave you with one final thought, and that's that there's an intelligent spirit, consciousness, presence within you that is always working through and around the obstacles in your body, in your life, in other people, to bring who you are, that's always good and always been good, into the world. And until we have more effective solutions, whether it's substance or therapies or somatic works and EMDR, until we find more effective solutions that clear out that underlying wound, because it is an emotional, physical wound that came into being with the trauma, in my case, of childhood, and very specific wounds within that childhood. And let's us free of that our spirit is always working around all of these things to still express its beauty. And the final thing, I think it's really important to stay conscious of that light, that essence that we are, that's always trying to come out through all of these many steps and blockages and strategies. And to support that part in finding the best workarounds and adaptations that we can to still bring some of us through this disease. That's all for now.